Once upon a time, in the village of Shama, lived a goldsmith named Kojo. He was very good at his work. He would always carefully craft intricate jewelry and ornaments from gold, shaping the precious metal with skill and artistry, often creating pieces that hold deep cultural and personal significance for the villagers. He was loved by the king for his skills. He gave him one of his maids, Ajua, as wife. Kojo loved and cherished Ajua. Years later, they gave birth to a son, a child they had been praying and waiting patiently for. They were so happy. They named him Frempo. Ajua was very happy when she found out she was pregnant. She had become a subject of discussion among the village women. They would whisper about her condition to one another, making her feel uncomfortable. But finally, she would have her baby, and all the whispering would stop. The day she gave birth to Frempo, it was a day like no other. The moment he entered the world, the villagers knew something was amiss. Frempo did not cry as newborns do. His lips remained sealed, and his eyes, though bright, held a strange, unsettling calm. Days turned into weeks, and the silence continued. The villagers began to murmur, their whispers growing louder as Frempo grew older. He was a mute, unable to speak or even make a sound. To the superstitious villagers, this was a bad omen, a sign that Frempo was cursed. As Frempo grew, so did the cruelty of those around him. The other children mocked him, their laughter ringing in his ears as they called him names and pushed him around. Even his own family, ashamed of their son, kept him at a distance. They tried to love him, but fear and shame clouded their hearts. The village elders, believing Frempo's silence to be a curse, urged the king to act. The king, a stern man who ruled with an iron fist, could not afford to let such an omen linger in his kingdom. This boy brings misfortune upon us, he declared. For the safety of the village, he and his family must be banished. And so Frempo and his family were cast out of Shama, forced to leave behind the only home they had ever known. They traveled for days through thick forests and across rivers until they came upon another village called Tongo, far from the one that had rejected them. This village, though weary of strangers, allowed them to stay. In the village of Tongo, Frempo's silence was met with curiosity rather than scorn. He worked hard to support his family, his strong hands and quick mind earning him respect. But despite this, he remained an outsider, his heart heavy with the pain of his past. Tongo was a wealthy village. The village was known for its rock formation and caves. Years passed and Frempo grew into a tall, strong young man. His silence had become a part of him, a shield that protected his heart. But deep within, a storm was brewing, a force he could not yet understand. When Frempo turned 21, a great danger loomed on the horizon. A rival tribe known for their ruthlessness had set their sights on Frempo's new village, Tongo. The villagers, though brave, were no match for the approaching enemy. Fear gripped their hearts as they prepared for the inevitable. Frempo watched as the villagers armed themselves with spears and shields, their faces edged with worry. He wanted to help, to protect the people who had given him and his family a home. But what could he do? He felt useless. As the warriors stormed the village, something inside Frempo snapped. A surge of energy, unlike anything he had ever felt, coursed through his veins. Without warning, he opened his mouth and let out a scream that had been building within him for 21 long years. But this was no ordinary scream. It was a sound that resonated with the earth itself, a cry that seemed to shake the heavens. The ground trembled, the air crackled with energy, and then from Frempo's mouth emerged giants towering beings made of earth and stone, their eyes burning with an ancient fire. The giants, summoned by Frempo's scream, rose to their full height, towering over the enemy warriors. With a single gesture, Frempo commanded them, his silent voice now with the most powerful weapon of all. The giant roared and charged forward, their massive footsteps shaking the earth. The enemy, once so confident, now fled in terror as the giant attacked them. The battle was over almost as soon as it began. The giant, under Frempo's command, drove the invaders from the village, leaving behind a trail of destruction. But the village was safe, its people saved by the power of the silent warrior. As the dust settled, the villagers stared in awe at Frempo, who stood in the center of it all, his chest heaving from effort. He was no longer just the mute boy who had lived among them. He was a warrior, a protector, a legend. From that day on, Frempo was revered as the silent warrior of Ghana, the one who had saved the village with the power of his voice. His past, filled with pain and rejection, was now a distant memory, overshadowed by his newfound purpose. Though he still could not speak, Frempo had found his voice in a way no one could ever imagine. In the village of Shama, word traveled swiftly. It was said that in a far-off village, a young man named Frempo had performed an ancient feat, saving an entire community from destruction. This news reached the ears of the king of Shama, who sat on his ornate throne, surrounded by elders. The king, who had once banished Frempo and his family from Shama, listened intently as his trusted messenger recounted the tale. "My king," the messenger began, "Frempo, the boy we cast out so many years ago, has become a warrior of great power. He summoned giants from the earth and defeated a tribe of invaders single-handedly." The king's heart, once hardened by fear and superstition, now ached with regret. Now he realized the grave mistake he had made. The king rose from his throne, his voice filled with determination. "We must bring Frempo and his family back to Shama," he declared. "We cast him out in fear, but now we must welcome him back with honor. But if he refused, we will attack the village. His mother was my maid. I still have authority over them." The elders exchanged uneasy glances, their wrinkled faces etched with concern. "But, my king," one of them spoke hesitantly, "how will Frempo and his family respond after the way we treated them? Will they forgive us? And if you order force, it might not end well." But the king would not listen. Without further delay, the king's orders were carried out. A group of the village's finest warriors, dressed in their ceremonial attire, set out on the journey. Along them were the elders, carrying gifts of gold, livestock, and finely woven clothes. They traveled with a sense of urgency, knowing that the future of Shama depended on their mission. After several days of travel, they arrived at the village where Frempo now lived with Ajua and Kojo. The sight of the warriors and elders bearing gifts and dressed in their finest drew the attention of the villagers. Whispers spread quickly. Why had the men of Shama come? Frempo, who had been walking in the fields, stood tall as the delegation approached, his heart raised, but his face remained calm. He recognized one of the men of Shama, and the memories of his past, the pain of rejection, came flooding back. Yet, Frempo's soul had grown strong, and he had found peace in his new life. The elders and the warriors stepped forward and bowed deeply before Frempo and his family, a gesture that shook the onlookers. "Frempo," he began, his voice reverent, "we come on behalf of the king of Shama. We come to ask for your forgiveness and to beg you to return to our village as a savior." The elder who had once urged Frempo's banishment now spoke, his voice trembling with emotion. Frempo were wrong. We acted out of fear and ignorance. The king himself sent us to right this wrong, and we beg you and your family to come back to Shama, where you will be honored and celebrated as you deserve. Frempo listened in silence, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision before him. He looked into the eyes of the men who had once cast him out, and in their eyes he saw genuine remorse. But the memories of how his parents were treated hardened his heart. He shook his head in rejection of their offer. How could he turn his back on the people of Tongo who took them in with acceptance of who he is? No, he will not go back. He is dedicated to defending Tongo, and he will do that till the day he dies. The elders of Shama kept on insisting he went with them as the king had ordered. Frempo refused and became angry at their persistence. The warriors that came with them angrily took out their spears to attack Frempo and the people of Tongo. Frempo screamed, and as he did so, giants came out of his mouth and attacked them. Some of them escaped to narrate their ordeal to the king of Shama. Since then, the people of Shama and other neighboring villages never ventured to attack the village of Tongo. In the quiet moment when the village was at peace, Frempo would sit alone, staring at the vast Ghana horizon. He knew that he would never again be an outcast, the one who was cast aside. He was a silent warrior, and his voice, though unheard, would echo through the ages, a legend in the heart of Ghana. Lesson learned: what you cast away will be appreciated by others. What you think is nothing can end up becoming something. God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise.